Imagine your child is sitting on the couch watching videos. You ask them to put their shoes on. Nothing. You ask again. Still nothing. The third time, they roll their eyes. The fourth time, they're arguing. And before you know it, a simple request has turned into a power struggle. Now imagine the exact same situation in Japan. A parent gives an instruction. The child doesn't respond immediately. And instead of repeating themselves, raising their voice, or threatening consequences, the parent simply waits. 10 seconds. That's it. No lecture. No countdown. No battle. Just 10 seconds. That's tent. No battle. Just 10 seconds. And strangely enough, the child often complies. Why? What happens during those 10 seconds that changes everything? Because here's the surprising truth. Many Japanese parents use a simple principle that most Western parents accidentally. And once you understand it, you'll never look at Backtalk the same way again. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand the 10-second Japanese rule, why it works according to child psychology, and how you can start using it tonight. Now, I know what some parents are thinking. If I wait 10 seconds, my child will just ignore me. Fair point. That's exactly what I thought too. But here's what's fascinating. The rule isn't really about waiting. It's about what the waiting communicates. And to understand that, we need to start with the question, what is backtalk actually? Most parents think backtalk is disrespect, disobedience, defiance, a child trying to challenge authority. Sometimes that's true, but developmental psychologists have discovered something important. Very often, backtalk isn't a discipline problem, it's a processing problem. Think about your own life. Imagine you're deeply focused on something, reading a difficult email, working on a project, watching an intense movie. Suddenly someone walks into the room and says, "Stop what you're doing and do this right now." How do you feel? Probably annoyed. Not because you're disrespectful, because your brain needs time to switch gears. Children experience this even more intensely. Their brains are still developing. Their ability to transition from one activity to another is much weaker than an adult's. Yet many of us expect instant obedience. We give an instruction and expect immediate action. When it doesn't happen, we repeat ourselves. Then we raise our voice. Then frustration enters the conversation. And that's often when backtalk begins, not with the child, with the pressure. Japanese parents tend to understand something different. The moment after an instruction is not a battle, it's a transition. And transitions require time. This brings us to a concept deeply embedded in Japanese culture, ma. Ma is often translated as space or pause, but it's much more than that. It's the belief that meaningful things happen in the space between events. In Japanese music, silence matters. In Japanese architecture, empty space matters. In Japanese conversation, pauses matter. And in parenting, pauses matter too. A lot. Many Japanese parents instinctively leave room after giving an instruction. They don't immediately fill the silence. They don't repeat themselves 5 times. They don't rush to control the situation. They create space. And that space allows the child to process. Think about how different this feels. Parent says, "Please put your toys away." Then silence. The child hears it, processes it, mentally shifts gears, and begins moving. Now compare that to what often happens elsewhere. "Put your toys away." Come on. Did you hear me? Why aren't you listening? Put them away right now. Within 5 seconds, the interaction has become emotionally charged. The child isn't just responding to the request anymore. They're responding to the pressure. And pressure often creates resistance. This is where one of the most misunderstood truths about parenting appears. Children don't always resist instruction. Sometimes they resist being controlled. There's a difference. When children feel cornered, their brains activate defensive responses, arguing, complaining, negotiating, ignoring. These behaviors often look like defiance, but underneath, they're frequently attempts to regain a sense of autonomy. Japanese parenting tends to avoid triggering this response unnecessarily. Instead of escalating quickly, many parents slow down, and slowing down changes everything. Let's look at an example. A 5-year-old is building something with blocks. They're completely immersed. Their parent says, "It's time for dinner." The child doesn't move. A typical reaction might be, "Didn't you hear me?" But a Japanese parent may simply wait 10 seconds, maybe a little longer. Not because they're being passive, because they understand something important. The child is leaving one world and entering another. That transition takes effort. The pause respects the process, and respect often creates cooperation. This idea is supported by modern neuroscience. Researchers have found that the brain requires time to disengage from one task and engage with another. This is called task switching. Adults experience it. Children experience it even more strongly. The younger the child, the harder it is. So when a child doesn't respond instantly, it doesn't automatically mean they're being difficult. Sometimes their brain is simply catching up. The Japanese approach recognizes this reality, and that recognition changes the interaction. Now, here's where things get even more interesting. The 10-second rule doesn't only help children, it helps parents. Because let's be honest, when children don't listen immediately, what happens inside us? We get irritated. We assume they're ignoring us. We start creating stories. They never listen. They're doing this on purpose. Why is everything a fight? And those stories affect our behavior. The second instruction comes out sharper. The third instruction sounds like a threat. The fourth becomes a confrontation. The child senses the tension, and now both sides are reacting emotionally. The 10-second pause interrupts this cycle. It gives the parent time to regulate, not just the child, the parent. And emotional regulation is contagious. Children often borrow calmness from the adults around them. If we escalate, they escalate. If we stay grounded, they often follow. This leads us to another Japanese principle. Children learn behavior by experience, not merely hearing about it. Parents frequently tell children, be patient. But what happens when we repeat instructions 5 times in 10 seconds? We're modeling impatience. The child learns far more from what we demonstrate than what we say. Japanese parenting places enormous value on modeling. The belief is simple. If you want a calm child, demonstrate calmness. If you want patience, demonstrate patience. If you want respect, demonstrate respect. The 10-second rule is powerful because it transforms the parent's behavior first. And once the parent's behavior changes, the child's behavior often follows. But let's address the obvious question. What if the child still doesn't listen? Great question. Because the goal isn't endless waiting. The goal is intentional waiting. After the pause, Japanese parents often move closer physically rather than becoming louder verbally. This is a subtle but important difference. Instead of shouting across the house, put your shoes on, they walk over, make eye contact, repeat the instruction calmly, the message becomes clearer, and because the interaction hasn't already escalated, resistance is less likely. This approach aligns with something psychologists call connection before correction. Children are more receptive when they feel connected, less receptive when they feel connected. Simple, but powerful. Now let's talk about something parents rarely consider. The hidden reward of Backtalk. Sometimes children argue because arguing works. Think about it. A parent asks for something. The child complains. The parent starts negotiating. 5 minutes pass. 10 minutes pass. The task is delayed. From the child's perspective, the strategy succeeded, not consciously, but behavior that produces results tends to repeat. Japanese parents often avoid long verbal battles, not because they're stricter, because they understand that attention can reinforce behavior. When instructions become debates, children learn to debate. When instructions remain calm and consistent, children learn consistency. The 10-second rule helps eliminate unnecessary arguments before they start, and that's a huge advantage. Another reason this approach works is because it preserves dignity. Children, like adults, want to feel respected. Nobody enjoys being nagged. Nobody enjoys being micromanaged. Nobody enjoys feeling powerless. When a parent immediately jumps from instruction to pressure, the child's dignity can feel threatened. The natural response is resistance. The pause communicates something different. I trust you heard me. Think about how powerful that message is. Trust, not suspicion. Trust. And people often rise to the expectations placed upon them. This phenomenon appears throughout Japanese education, where teachers build trust before demanding compliance responsibility, before control and expectation, before punishment. Children internalize these messages and begin seeing themselves as capable, responsible, and cooperative. Identity drives behavior. Children who see themselves as listeners tend to listen, while negative labels can increase misbehavior. The goal is not perfect obedience, but long-term self-regulation and healthy communication. The 10-second rule reinforces this through small pauses that reduce escalation, build patience, and shape a calmer emotional environment over time. Click on the next video on your screen now. And if you enjoy learning about parenting psychology, child development, and the hidden lessons behind different cultures, subscribe for more. I'll see you in the next one.